Hello, welcome to another edition of Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 167 for October 11, 2024. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plantain App, and Patrick Anderson joined here today. He is technical success manager for Plantain App. Together with you, we'll work on answering your questions and hosting a discussion about Plantain App today. We do this every Friday at 10 a.m. Central. This hour, we just get together, talk about what's going on with Plantain App, a little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit about the challenges that you're facing, but all in all, usually something that we all learn something before the end of the hour. So all skill levels are welcome. We put all of these out on YouTube, so youtube.com/plantainapp. You can watch previous episodes and learn great techniques. That's all very searchable through YouTube, so you can come up with, you can find examples of the things that we talk about. We run this loose agenda. We always stop and say hi because we're a friendly group, and then after that we go around the campfire and we always do first call on anything that got submitted in the week before, and then we hit some of these other topics. After an hour or so, we go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we turn off the recording and enjoy each other for a few more minutes. So do engage with us. You can submit questions and topics in advance. One of them from last week came from this. This is a QR code, and I think we may, I don't know if we put this on the chat or not, but we can do that if you want. Alternately, you can just send an email to support@plantainapp.com and suggest it as a campfire log, stretching our metaphor a little bit. Hello, all.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
And since we have a cast of regulars today, we will not force you to do an introduction, but rather just dive in. So, did anybody come with first call?
Sorry, surprisingly not.
Well, not a problem. There's lots to talk about. Some things, some
Sure.
corrections I want to make, and announcements and whatever. So maybe that'll spur discussion. Last week we spent some time talking about workflow outputs, and so in that episode we were talking about that when you do a workflow and have outputs coming from a workflow, when you call that workflow, those outputs are kind of implicitly available to you, whether you ask for them or not. And we kind of made the point, well, that's how it behaves, and we just want you to know about it. But since then, our product team has taken this up and given it consideration, and we just encourage you not to rely on this behavior because we are planning to change it so that it behaves a little bit differently. If you the normal pattern with workflows is that you if you want that you put the name of the token where you want a workflow to deliver the output, and we're changing the behavior so that if you don't provide a token that you won't get the output. So that's a little bit more logic standard, and yeah, does it were any of you here for that discussion, and does that make any sense or any impact in your lives?
Wasn't
Yeah.
here for that, but I'm kind of not following. But that's probably because I missed their original.
So this is easier to see than to talk about, and I probably should have done that in the first place. So we're talking about workflows, and I showed this last week. I have a simple workflow that just creates some outputs. It doesn't do anything else except create output 1, 2, and 3. And I had another workflow, and this was a useful discussion. We talked about the actions necessary to show context, but we take no inputs, we run that same workflow that creates 3 outputs, and then so there's this action JSON context to JSON object. I'm putting everything into a output called tokens, and then displaying tokens. So, and I'm sorry, I skipped one thing. When I ran this, if we set this up so that there are no, the outputs are not wired. So we have output 1, output 2, output 3, but we haven't wired them to any particular token. When we save and test this, we're still getting output 1, output 2, output 3 in the output. Implicitly, the way that execute workflow works is if you don't name these things, you get them under the name of the way that they were named in the workflow that you're calling. And this is not very standard. Well, let's say this is a behavior we didn't realize. First of all, does that make sense to you now that I said it another way with pictures?
It makes sense. I just personally, I never even realized that. I just assumed if you didn't give it a name, the output was ignored.
And that's what I assumed. And 2 weeks ago, I had this aha moment when I realized that they were coming back. And I brought it to the product team, who some said, "Oh yeah, that's what it does," and others said had that same aha moment. And so realizing that this implicit behavior could cause unexpected results, we decided that it's better for the product to not do that anymore. So we will change it to the way you just your understanding, your common understanding of it, Ben. So I'm mentioning this since I talked about it last week. I wanted to bring it up and say that don't rely on this behavior and realize that we're going to make it be the way it should have. Yeah, I would say should have been that you only get the outputs if you ask for them, and that way the workflow that you have that you're calling can't control the workflow implicitly, provide context implicitly. And that is something of that's a potential breaking change if anybody's been relying on it, but we haven't publicized it before last week, so hopefully it will not be a big problem for people. And that is likely to happen in our next version, 127. Good. Mark, who happens not to be here, I think had both of these suggestions came in from the suggestion form, so we can. I might come back to this. Sometimes Mark comes in a little bit late. We are working on building a Plantain app installer module. If anybody has, this is the scenario where if you have a DNN site and perhaps a site that used Action Form or Action Grid or some of our older modules, and we want to bring it up to Plantain app, so advance it from whatever DNN version it's on and whatever odd combinations of products that you have. We want to be able to just in as few as steps as possible install Plantain app. We've long had a procedure that it's documented out on learn.plantainapp.com that says how to upgrade these older modules, and it's something of a painstaking process. Just simply installing Plantain app, the current version of Plantain app doesn't work because of all the changes that's happened between those years ago and now. So we're coming up with we want to make it as easy as possible for people to adopt Plantain app, and so if they have an older version of DNN, or more particularly with our products, which were very popular as individual modules, and we still sell a couple of them as individual modules. We want to make it as easy as possible to just add plant and app to the environment. So we're building an installer. We've mentioned, and just a little bit of context, we've mentioned in the past that we are going to be introducing a starter plan, that comes with some of the features of plant and app at a lower price point. And so we hope that the people that previously used our products will make it easier for them to adopt this starter plan. So we're in need of a few real life examples. I mean, we can come up with examples of how to of older sites that need to be upgraded, but we like some. And I see Don, you've raised your hand so very politely.
I don't have any older sites with Action Form or any of the other products because I've upgraded each of them to Plan an App. I just wanted to share that I didn't have any problem with with uh, uh, the installation. I guess the only little gotcha is that you really want to be logged into console when you click the put in your license or activate the product button. Because if you're not, then well, my experience was that you kind of got lost in the weeds. But if I come back in and log in and then go back to the product and then click the install, then it boom, just like that. Was very easy to activate. And there was no issue with it replacing the action form with the latest uh, form builder.
Yep. The people that and I'm glad that you had a good experience, and that's really actually a very good suggestion about understanding that you need to be logged into console. I think it's possible to upgrade without being logged into console, but or not upgrade, to activate, but it's more straightforward. So if you got lost, we'll take that under advisement. We'll test that scenario and make sure that that's less of a problem. But we have some. I mean, there's some people that stay completely updated with things as fast as they come out, and then I probably when I was running sites, I probably fell into the category of somewhere in the middle. I let things age a little bit before I adopted them because I didn't want to be on the bleeding edge. And then there's people who never upgrade ever, anything ever. And so certainly the people in that last category, plus some of the scenarios that we get into are older products. I mean, because they've been around for a long time and a lot of changes going on with them, and no enforcement of version, you have people that were running different versions of different products, and that incompatibility was something that really we struggled with on support, trying to it was far better for people to be running modules that were all kind of the same time frame. If you ran one from a year ago and one from 2 years ago, then some of the things that they shared were the shared DLLs were sometimes in conflict, and you could have some problems. Anyway, I don't know why I'm so wordy today. Anyway, these we do have people with scenarios where they're running 5.0 versions of our software on DNN 9.3 or 9.9.1 or some of these very older versions. And so just different scenarios that they get into together with other modules, that the upgrades can be painful. And the more modules you have, the more pain it can be, because trying to get them all upgraded individually, each one takes a site reset. Sometimes some people with larger sites have longer resets, and so it just becomes very painful. So I'm glad your experience was good. We have others that don't. And so we're going to build a solution to that. And as I mentioned, we are in search of people who have older sites that need this, and can give us some real life examples. We would, if you have one of those and reach out to me, we would, the hope would be we would clone it in our environment and come up with a simplified procedure, which also means that if you decided to upgrade that as well, then it would be a simple procedure for you, but it would certainly help us. Okay. So Patrick, I'm just gonna, did I miss anything there? I was like real wordy.
No, I don't think so.
For those of you who joined since we got started, nobody had first call, so I'm just running through my list, but if anybody has something you want to talk about, I'm happy to jump to that. Wednesday, Low-Code Café is out on YouTube, and we did metadata extraction and showed off some Bazinga as well. Bazinga is our product that does AI, and so rather than calling an AI engine an external one, we called Bazinga, and Bazinga has integration with a wide variety of AIs, whether it's GPT or Amazon's version or Google's version. It's a kind of an engine that does all of that, and we introduced that with a low price point plan to be able to adopt AI into your applications. So if you missed that, worth taking a look at. Anybody saw it? Anybody have any questions? Anybody notice that I almost got where I was trying to go? I showed how to extract metadata from like a support ticket, but it wasn't working perfectly by the time it was done. It's always frustrating to run out of time. We've mentioned in the last few episodes that we're going to DNN Summit in February, and firmly believe that you should too. One of the things that I'm going to be presenting is some PowerShell scripts to do things that you would find administrative type things that maybe will save you some time. And I have some topics in progress, but I was going to throw out if there are pesky DNN administrative tasks that would be useful to automate and perhaps could be done through PowerShell or SQL, but if you have ideas, I would appreciate any feedback. I might incorporate those into my work, and it'll turn up something that you'll be able to take advantage of. Don, you still have your hand up?
I have it up. And it's your point about being at DNN Summit. I have a talk that I was going to give, but it didn't get, fit in. So I'm like the late night talk show host type stuff where, sorry, Don, we couldn't fit you in. Maybe we'll talk to you next week. But I was going to be talking about example projects where I worked with other companies to make it all happen. And of course, Planet App was several of the projects that I would be talking about. And so all of that is preface to won't they let you talk about Planet App? Because I know you're talking about more, generic to DNN stuff, but I'm hoping that you put in somehow ancillary or not Planet App, because it's one of the cool ecosystem solutions for the DNN world, and they seem to have a problem if something is not purely open source, that they don't want to talk about it. They just want to talk about the DNN core, but the core is great because of its extensibility. So I was wondering if you're going to make any mention in your talk about Planet App, as you know, that you can use these scripts and call them in Planet App, or are you going to be pure, working in DNN?
So I think to answer your question, it would be very hard for me to show up and not talk about Plantinab, but um,
Good.
to me it's going to be an either or, because we'll be focusing on PowerShell scripts, which of course you can run in a variety of ways, and Plantinap has PowerShell run PowerShell script actions. So I believe that we'll be demonstrating them both ways, and the scripts that I mean, I think we're billed as 7 scripts that you can use immediately to solve every problem in your life or something like that. But to not, I'm being facetious, but the scripts will be published and available to anybody that attends that session. You can use them inside of Plantain App, you can use them outside of Plantain App. And so I will certainly be showing that you can use them within, and hopefully people will get the vision that these actions and the way for example, our workflows and our action engines kind of come together to make it where you can click things or have things happen automatically. We'll be showing off our added value, but at the end of the day, somebody who doesn't buy Plantain App will get absolutely the same benefit.
Got it. Okay.
But good question. We submitted some things to the, and I don't know what process they use. They've got to come up with what is best for the ecosystem. We did submit a talk that was far more Plantain App focused, and that was rejected. And I mean, we came up with a lot of things that we several topics that we wanted to present. Not everything was accepted, so we kind of experienced the same that you did. They've got to pick what is best for what they want to present. I suspect they will put together a very good event. So I'm going to be working out of something along, I mean, major topics that I'm going to be pulling from. But if you have any ideas of things that you struggle with, things that take a lot of time, that if automated might be better, I'd welcome the feedback. Took a look out at Campfire, and there were no new contributions there. And the community portal, the feature requests, I mentioned this, I think, last week, that internally it was very I think it's good to report that internally, as we consider the new versions, so the work on version 127 is ongoing. The work on version 128 is being considered, and our team wants to incorporate things from the feature request list. So hopefully we'll see more motion on these things. But let's see, last week, Patrick posted the move file action as a feature request. And it shows me not logged in. Okay. We have a lot of things in our file management, but we don't have move file. And as Patrick has pointed out, you got a workaround, but the workaround doesn't maintain the file ID, which can be problematic in some cases. So move file is the right thing to do, and it's probably not a very hard one for us to do. Have we, has this made it onto the list yet, Patrick?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. As a logged in user, I can vote, and I definitely want to vote. So we will give the thumbs up for this. Anybody else who wants to, Patrick would, and others, I think last week, Mark maybe was interested in this one as well. Was inline help suggestion. This was kind of part of a thing that I got started a month or two ago. Marcos already won the contest for improving our inline help. He had several suggestions, so he gets a keychain out at DNN Summit. Anyone have any that they want to that think should be in here or want votes for? Right.
There's a few things that I think I'll probably be adding today.
Good. So I kind of, that's the end of my list. I don't think I have anything else that specifically wanted to talk about. So if you, I guess I could do a scheduling note. I'll save that one for a minute. So
You could start singing.
yes, so there is a history here somewhere.
Yeah.
When in episode 1, I was afraid that nobody would say anything, and what was I going to do? So I prepared this slide. I carry it forward, but we all know that. I mean, I think you can tell that this is not a good scenario if I start singing. Ben, it's a nice technical topic. If you want to bring it up, I think that would be lovely. Sounds like a feature request too, though, right? If it doesn't work right.
Well, potentially, I don't know if it would be a feature request or a unexpected or something that's supposed to work that isn't, because I don't recall me having a problem with this in the past. But basically, in the latest Bootstrap 5 version, I'm running right now, Plantain App version 1.25. I haven't had a chance to get a little further yet, but within a grid, what I've done in the past as a method of highlighting a row, I would add a column at the very end of the row, a custom template, and then I would add in the template area a script tag with some JavaScript in there that would just basically test information existing on that current row. And depending on where it hits in the if-else nesting list, it would then apply using jQuery a background color to the row. Works perfectly fine in the past, but what I've noticed now is that it works when the page first loads. I have the grid set to watch the URL. So every time the URL parameters change, it reloads the grid. On a reload, it doesn't execute the Java code.
I'm not sure it makes a difference, but I'm wondering, are you using the data source refresh action or the uh, uh, refresh a listing action?
Either.
Okay.
It's a URL change. The grid is watching the URL.
Oh, I see. Yeah, never. Okay.
I mean, I could show you on screen the behavior that I'm referring to. If visually it makes sense to see it.
No, I get it. I'm just trying to recall if have you tested a listing refresh just to see if that I'm not saying that that's maybe it won't work in your situation, but just wondering, does it do it? Or is it, I guess I'm trying to determine, is it specific to to the behavior of monitoring the URL or
I haven't, in this particular case, I haven't tested it with an action to refresh because it's, in this particular page, it's not an option. Just the way the form that is triggering the URL change is not, it's a shared form. It's not specific to this page. So it has to behave in a certain way that is universal. And by putting in an action to refresh the grid, that breaks it. So in this particular case, I haven't done it. Just probably have to make a clone or tweak it to test that, at least temporarily.
So I think what, do you know what version you're running then? 125, 126. Last I knew.
All right, I'm answering you with mute on. Sorry, 125.
And I think part of our question there has to do with we have some issues, known issues in 126 watching the URL string, and so that was part of what. But I don't know that I don't think that exists in version 1.25. I'm not certain. So you're using sync with URL. Do you know if you're using a query string prefix?
I am not.
Because this query string prefix is one of the areas where we have a known issue again with version 126. I would say if you developed I'd be happy to help with this. And I think also we should maybe, if there's I don't know if there's a different or better way to accomplish row highlighting that we should be talking about, but talking about existing behavior and not working. If you had a simplified listing, perhaps based on the users table or pages or something like that, that did this kind of thing, something that was transportable so that I could move it into my environment, I'd be happy to try it on older versions and see if it broke at some point. And that's the kind of thing that would, if it worked in 124 and doesn't work in 125, or some hotfix at 125, then maybe we can understand the what broke it and do a ticket to fix it.
Really quick, Patrick, I did a test and I did the action for listing refresh and it didn't make a difference. It's the same behavior.
It's like that JavaScript isn't rendering at that point.
Right. It's like I said, every row has that last field, that last column that I added in,
Mhm.
which has that custom JavaScript that should affect only that one row. On a page load, it works perfectly fine. The rows get the background color they're supposed to. But when the data is refreshed, you know, with I guess internally using Ajax or whatever, where it's just the grid updating and not the whole page reloading, the data does refresh on the grid, but it doesn't seem to run the Java code in the last column. So then all of the background row colors go to white. None of the backgrounds get applied.
Maybe maybe you can talk me through a simplified version of this. If I
Yeah, I could post in the chat something that you could use on that grid right there.
yeah, and I think this is be a computed field, correct? That we would add.
Yes. Yeah,
And
it's the one that gives you that template that you have right there. So, I mean, just really, let's see.
are
Let
you doing a
me,
scripts tag?
yeah, I'm just gonna write you a quick script and then post
Thank
it
you.
in the
And I'm thinking
chat.
like we'll do a console log to not get into highlighting the row, but rather just verify what's running.
Last name is equal to, take out the rest. Just pasted some code. Oh, the record ID part, that depends on whatever your
Sure.
um, unique one is.
Does this generally look like good script? Anyone see anything wrong with this?
Yeah.
So if I refresh this, and we should have a new column. Well, there's the first problem. This is
Allow HTML.
allow
You know, yeah, I've been running into that so much recently that I feel like we should, if you set something to like a template field should just have allow HTML check marked automatically, and then you deselect it if you don't want it or something like that.
I am totally for that because it happens to me every time I
Yeah.
create the custom column. It's
Hmm.
always because I usually have some sort of HTML in there. And every time I refresh the page and I see all the gibberish, I'm like, oh, I forgot to check it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so this one kind of works out. When I reverse sort this, we see the user IDs. I mean, let's see, we're into user IDs here, 69, 68. So I'm just displaying them, and as I change it, so interacting with it this way is getting at that. So partially working. If I do so if I doing a search, I'm seeing that I got IDs as well. 23634. So 236934. So as I'm working with search, we're seeing the JavaScript execute. Is this the behavior you're talking about? Or
No, I'm using another form to update the URL.
okay.
And
So
that seems to be what's the issue. Or like Patrick just said, I just threw a button really quick and I just told it refresh the listing after I've updated the URL, because the form, when it goes to update the URL, nothing's happening. So I'm forcibly telling it refresh, and it's still not updating the color.
Yeah, I'm doing some testing on my end also, and I can see that I actually have a setup where I'm, you know, styling rows, um, and I can verify that I'm getting. I tested the console log, and the JavaScript's running because I'm getting a value. When I refresh the listing, I'm getting a value in the console, but my styles are not loading. So yeah, not sure why that is, because the JavaScript runs, but
All right, so this sounds like more of an issue of the styling rather than whether or not the JavaScript is running. Is that what do I have that anywhere close to correct?
yeah, I think so.
Let's do a bit of user ID, but I'm also going to show just prove that we're getting our variables here. So VS primary. So again, just working with the log here a little bit. Add JavaScript. All right, so we got a little bit of stuff running here. Logic trying to do. Does last name not need to be in quotes?
No, no, the token doesn't, but the other piece on the right side does.
Well, the token gets replaced. So Warner would be trying to be Warner as a variable, just like I did quotes here.
No, because it gets replaced, but it gets replaced with JavaScript code of fields dot the field name dot value. If you put it in quotes, then you're putting the field name in quotes, and it'll never be equal.
Well, so let's start with this. Your way you similar to the way you said it. it's unhappy.
Wait. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm getting myself confused with forms. I believe you are correct. Sorry. You're right. You're right. It does need to be in quotes. My apologies.
So no longer errors, and I just had used a placeholder to log things. So now let's try the styling that we were hoping for. Closest to your background. Okay. Yeah, so it didn't like my addition there. Can't read closest.
The row ID has to be whatever. See that variable str row ID, record, and then bracket record ID. That bracket record ID, that has to be whatever your unique row identifier is.
No, you change the user ID.
Like that.
If that's one of the columns that you have on the grid, yeah. Yep, that should do it.
Still unhappy with something. So if we go to the VM.
What? Sorry, scroll all the way to the top of the SQL of the JavaScript. Oh, you didn't. I think you missed a line at the top of the script that I pasted in the chat.
Yes, okay. You did.
And that record ID you have to change to user ID also.
So this is where you're providing a unique identifier on
the row.
A unique div, right, for the row. Okay, great.
Yeah. And then that's how it finds the row and then traverses up the tree.
Alrighty. And it's working. So now we need to manipulate our query string a little bit. And
You just proved it right there.
yes, there
Yep.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you. So let's try again. We're the JavaScript is running because we see it work here. So it's not an issue of JavaScript failing, right? Oh, and not only that, but it's there's some dirty and clean going on is what it looks like here. So let's refresh. Let's refresh without. So we have no filtering, and we have these 3 and 6 are the only ones that have a capital Warner. If we search for Warner, 3 and 6 are the only ones that are not working, but these ones that now were not on the screen originally do. And what we're seeing but what rows are being displayed may be at issue 3 and hard for me to keep track here, so I'm going to clear that. All right. So all these rows, the execution happened on on 3/6/34. Didn't work for 3 and 6, but it did work for 34/58. Unless it was
Okay, I did something that seems to now work around the problem, but it was something that I don't recall ever needing to have done before. I just put a set timeout around the entire script code, and I just gave it 150 milliseconds. And now when the grid refreshes, it's coloring it correctly.
That's where I was going. I was like, I don't think it's finding that I don't think the div is
in existence.
yeah.
It's odd because when you look at it from a logical perspective, it's the first thing
Yeah.
that runs. It runs before the script, so it should be there.
Can you throw that syntax on here so I can
Yeah.
do that as well? Because just to kind of close the loop on this for anybody else who's following.
Where is the chat button? So that first line, just put it as the first piece, and then that third line, put it at the very end.
I'm sorry. I'm not following where to put it.
Yeah, so that set timeout function, that first line, that goes at the top. And then that last one, comma 150, cut that out and move it all the way to the bottom of the script. And then you could get rid of the word code here, the words. That was just placeholder.
Have I ever mentioned I'm not a JavaScript guy?
Oh, you got to put one more closing bracket right where your cursor is. You could just, yep, you're good to go.
So we've defined the function. The function is this thing that's going to run after a brief delay. And there's actually going to be a whole lot of these running after a brief delay, right? One for every row.
One for each row.
But they'll all have the same delay. So they're all waiting for the same thing to happen. All right, let's clear this out and fully refresh. So it's a timing thing, and maybe related to Bootstrap 5, but regardless, a JavaScript timing issue that was behind it. And so now you're confirming that if you just do it through pure manipulation of the query string, that it's happening as you would expect.
Right. With this set timeout, now when I manipulate the query string, the grid recolors itself as it's supposed to. I would say, and this will probably be another feature request, I would love to see the ability like in action form where we can define initialization scripts. I would love to be able to see that in grids so that instead of writing this code directly in here and having it, repeat the entire script for every row, the grid you could create a function to do it, and then every row just calls the function that the grid had instantiated. Same like with the form. You could create a function, and then your form can call that function as many times as it needs.
Yes. I absolutely agree. I'm pretty sure. Go ahead, Patrick.
So you haven't, but I mean, we have a JS field, but it does not work that way. Is that under advanced UI settings there yet? The unedited JavaScript there. Or maybe this is added, later.
Check. Well, maybe it is there. And is that new or has that always been there?
I can't remember when it was added, but yeah.
Yeah, I could have sworn we always had a situation where we couldn't really define. Maybe it was added and I just never noticed it was there.
So
I stand corrected.
One thing, I mean, when we introduced Bootstrap 5, they flagged this as legacy only, which I think is not true. I think it does. I think it does work. There are other conditions though that we talked about needing an action stack for on load and on refresh. That's I think a feature request that hasn't made it, but I think you might be able to use this. Regardless, documenting it the way it is today, this looks like a great project for me to. This looks like a good campfire contribution because I think this is the kind of thing that people want to do all the time. Call attention to rows within yeah, highlighting based on the data that's in the row.
Yeah, and we have a there's a ticket, and I was actually looking earlier on. It was funny. I was looking for this, and then Ben started talking about this, and I was actually looking to bring it up for a discussion. We have I could have sworn there was a feature request out there, and I couldn't find it, but I know that in our internal DevOps, Dale, we have a ticket out there for adding the ability to add a class to rows and to a tokenized class
based on a token.
Yeah, a tokenized class for rows and cells, so that you would then having that would give you an ability to style things very granularly in a listing, and it just hasn't made it up yet to it hasn't passed the yeah,
well,
right, yeah.
Well, let's do this. If you find it, would you put it on the product agenda and we'll talk about it for
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Definitely.
So we ended up with a good geeky discussion. I appreciate that. We have used up our hour, so I'm going to call it here. We're going to do this again next week, and I guess the programming note is that 2 weeks from now, I'll be away and Patrick will be guiding it, and it's a great time to talk about how wordy I get when I'm at the helm. So anyway, if you get a moment and you want to hang on and do Afterglow, we'll do that. And but I do thank you for spending the hour with us. Let me find the stop recording button. Thanks all.